Good afternoon. My name is Inga Cotton, and these are Charter Moms Chats, where we talk about issues that parents need to know, whether it comes to distance learning or bringing kids back on campus during the coronavirus pandemic. And we're not able to hold events like we normally do, but we still want to connect and communicate with our people, whether it's the online group for San Antonio Charter Moms, or if you're watching this on the page or on our YouTube channel. What we're talking about today, and you'll find a link in the description of the video. We have a new blog post about Boerne ISD, which if you're not from the San Antonio area, it's a small community in Candle County, just outside of Bexar County, with actually a couple of campuses that do overlap with Bexar County. And so it's a beautiful little town. My family loves going out there to go to the Cibolo Nature Center, and we love to eat at the restaurants. There's a lot of German heritage. So it's a beautiful little town, and they have an award-winning school board. And but what's interesting about Boerne is that they were the first public school district in the region to open their campus, right? So like almost all students in San Antonio have been doing distance learning for the past few weeks, but students in Boerne ISD have been on campus since August 12th. And we talked to Bryan back then, but we have Bryan Benway, who's the director of communications for Boerne ISD, back on the show to talk about how things have gone they're in week 4 of on-campus learning for the majority of Boerne ISD students. And it sounds like it's going pretty well, but that doesn't get quite as much attention as when things don't go well. But we want to share the good news as well. So Bryan, thank you for all the links and the photos and the research that you shared with us. And thank you for being on Charter Moms Chats again.
Inga, thank you very much for having me back on the show. You're right. This is the end of week 4. Tomorrow will be our 4th week that we've ended. It's actually be 18 school days tomorrow. And I was talking to my stepson this morning before I dropped him off. Can you believe we've already had 17 days of school today? So we have a lot to talk about. So I'm really glad that you invited me back on. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So in the blog post, we have links to a lot of like coverage about Boerne ISD. We have links to the back to school plan. And I think one of the things that I've been so impressed with as I researched the story was the communication strategy that Boerne ISD has used. And that there's, right, so like if you visit the blog post or if you click through to the back to school, actually here I'll put the link up on the screen. But so on the website, anyone who visits can find a whole bunch of information about the back to school plan. And there's a lot of beautiful graphics that your team made, that teach parents about procedures, teach students about procedures. So I wanted you to comment on, the communication strategy and how you think that has played a role in terms of gaining the trust of the community and, helping so many families to choose to send their kids to on-campus learning.
I think the most important thing that we can do as a district is 1, communicate, 2, be transparent, and also we want to make sure that we listen and we're able to answer questions. So this plan that we had was being formed way back in April when we were still in last school year. And we had around 50 total individuals from the health field, the medical profession, principals, our administration, teachers, parents, community members that were involved in helping us put this plan together. We publicly rolled the plan out right after the 4th of July holiday. I believe it was July 15th or July 16th when we came back from our 4th of July holiday. And we gave our families, as you well know, because you and I have discussed it before, 2 options. 1, you could come in person, or 2, you could choose e-learning. And no matter which option you chose, you were making the best decision for your family and for your children. So our goal when we rolled this out in mid-July was to give families a preview of what the 2 options were going to be. So we initially started off with, okay, we're going to offer in person, there's going to be enhanced safety, and we're going to offer e-learning. It's going to be a lot different than what we saw back in March, April, and May. It's going to be more of a rigorous schedule. So we gave them kind of a little teaser to feel out their ideas and their thoughts. Then we gave them all the information, which was all of our safety protocols, which are listed on that link that you put on there, how the classes were going to look, what we were expecting of our students, our staff, and our parents. And then we gave the outline a couple weeks after that for what our e-learning would look like. And our e-learning, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, is much more in depth than it was during the spring semester. It is an all-day encompassing e-learning program. It's not just 30 minutes, get your homework done, and you're done for the day. And so part of that communication process for us was, obviously, we had a very big working document. We had, I believe, an 8 or a 9-page working document that we sent to our families, and it had all the words in it, and it had bullet points, and it had links. But as you and I discussed before, a lot of times graphics with color and with photos really help. And so we created a lot of those graphics that had short, simple bullet points for our families to make sure that they're able to see what we're asking them for. So we also did that in email form on our website. And then as school started, we made sure that our principals and our department from communications were sending out updates to parents as well. And in the 4th week of school now, we continue to do that. We continue to update our parents. So I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, the CDC came out with a new guidance about face shields. And they said K through 12, face shields were not recommended unless you also wore a mask. So we changed that and we let our parents know about it. And as we go along in this process, whenever we have changes, we make sure that we let our families know as well. So back to my beginning point was, communication is so important because we're dealing with other people's children. And my son is an 8th grader here in Boerne ISD. He actually goes to the school across the street from my office, which is really cool. So I have a kid in the school district, and so I'm obviously heavily invested in it. But we also have 9,500 other students that are in the district. And so when you're dealing with other people's children, you want to be very transparent. You want to communicate overly, and that's what we try and do. And we answered, I don't know how many, but it was thousands and thousands of questions that we received. And so we're hopeful that all of that communication helped ease parents a little bit. And we're still learning. You know, this is a brand new day for all of us. And we might learn something new tomorrow about what we might want to tweak. And so I think communication is so important only because we're dealing with other folks' children. And if my son were at a different school district, I would want the same amount of communication and transparency, because that's so important for parents to feel comfortable. And like you said, to earn that trust of what their kids are doing in school 8 hours a day.
Yeah. And you've broken it down into so many different channels, right? Like, so there's like the Boerne Insider, which is like a little TV show that you guys put together, but it covers, really important topics like how to be safe. And then the more people, whether it's through like email or text, or, however they see the flyer, if they see the flyer on social media, or if they see it in the video, it's making people communicate actually makes the world safer, right? Because if children are wearing their mask properly, or if they know to wash their hands more often, that keeps everyone safer. So communication is not an abstract thing. It actually changes things in the real world.
You're right. And I want to go back to the communication piece, because something that's very important that I didn't speak of earlier, but I want to bring up now, is the communication that parents have with their students before even going to school. All of us have been going through this since March, and in our house, and I'm sure in your house and your viewers' houses, we've all talked to our kids about the importance of wearing a mask, the importance of social distancing, the importance of hand sanitizer, washing your hands, being cognizant of your surroundings. Don't touch shared spaces. If you do, sanitize, wash your hands. And so I bring that up because in the 4 weeks that we've had school, our kids are doing such a great job. And that was a big question. I know when you and I spoke right before school started was, well, are kids going to be comfortable wearing a mask for 7 hours a day? And the parents and the students are doing such a great job because they know that if we're going to stay safe, one, and two, if we're going to continue to keep our schools open, we need to do these things. And our parents have been doing a fantastic job of having them wear the masks. And then when we go to campuses, in the administration, we're limiting our campus visits right now from central office because we want to give the protocols a chance to grow, and we don't want to be going from one campus to another and maybe taking some stuff with us. So in the limited interactions that we've had from an administration, everywhere that we go, masks are being worn, the hand sanitizer is being used. And my son, I ask him every day when he gets home from school, how are the protocols going? And I quiz him, and he says, you know what? There's only 3 kids at my lunch table, including myself. Last year there was 12 maybe. And hallways are staggered. So 6th graders will leave first to go to their next class, and then 7th graders, and then 8th graders. And so there are all these different safety protocols that are now put into place, but that also is communicated by the parents. And our principals are doing such a great job with sending this information home weekly, and sometimes, if they have to, daily, to our parents of these reminders. And as a matter of fact, from the district office, we sent out mass communication to all of our families yesterday, reminding them of the importance of staying safe over Labor Day weekend. We have a 3-day weekend coming up, and we wanted to make sure that they knew, hey, just because we're off for 3 days doesn't mean that we at home can be lax in following the protocol. So whether you're going out somewhere, we urge them to continue to social distance, continue to wear masks, avoid large and crowded areas. And so all of that stuff, I think, rolls into the communication package of where it's a team effort, whether it's from central office in my department or whether it's from principals, parents, and teachers doing a great job. So I think it's a community mindset, and everybody that is invested in this is doing a great job because they know we need to keep safe and to keep open.
Yeah. As researching this article, I checked in with a friend of mine she has one child at my kid's school and one child at Voss Middle School in Boerne ISD. And she said that, yeah, her son wears his mask. I mean, unless he's actually eating, he has his mask on from as soon as she drops him off in the morning to like as soon as he gets off the bus in the afternoon. And she talked about like the procedures they have for cleaning the buses, the assigned seating that they have for kids. And yeah, it's like you said, there's a lot of thought that went into all the procedures, and people are following through with the procedures. So one reason why I've been so interested in what's happening in Boerne ISD is that y'all are the leaders, and so you're in the spotlight. But that I hope that like all of our readers, from all across the San Antonio area, they may be nervous. Some charter schools, like I think New Frontiers and Brooks and Anne Frank, they're bringing students on campus on Tuesday, and at my kids' school at Great Hearts, they're bringing kids on campus on the 14th. And, so like there's, lots of families are in this state of anticipation of, what's it going to be like when the campus is open. And one thing I want parents to hear and to realize is that like the sky has not fallen in Boerne, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I just wonder if you could comment. I mean, there have been some, confirmed cases in the Boerne ISD community, but the procedures have worked, I guess, but I'm curious, have you learned from those experiences? Have you modified the procedures at all? Or sort of, what sort of advice or reassurance could you give to either the school leaders or the parents who are, in their schools, in their communities, the campus opening is imminent for them and they're a little nervous?
And, I understand the nervousness. And I think the interesting part for us is when we opened on August 12th, we had our plan in place. We were very prepared, but we didn't exactly know what to expect because we've never gone through an opening like this before. And what I will tell you is what we found out, not only on day 1, but now day 17, is that we mostly are dealing with everyday, typical, normal school issues. A student schedule wasn't changed, or somebody forgot their lunch money or their lunch bag. Something was wrong with a bus broke down. So it honestly hasn't been, and I've said this a few times this week to several different groups that I've spoken to, it hasn't been all COVID all the time in Boerne ISD. It honestly hasn't. At this very moment, I don't know if you checked out our website today, but we only have 5 active confirmed cases in our district. And for your viewers who aren't familiar with us, we have 9,530 something students, 1,300 staff. So that's 10,800 total folks and 5 active cases. We have, I believe, 12 overall cases. So the good news is that 7 of them have recovered, and that's fantastic. And so I think a major thing, you're asking for reassurance or nervousness, it's don't put all of your eggs in the COVID basket, because there are a lot of everyday, day-to-day school things that might pop up that you might forget about because you're so focused on what might happen with COVID. As long as you follow your protocols, as long as the families and the students do their part at home with making sure if your child has a temperature, if they show any type of symptoms, don't send them to school, number one. And then if they're sick or they come down with something or they don't feel well in school, go to the nurse right away. The nurse will send you home. Wear your mask, sanitize, wash your hands, social distance. If you follow all those protocols.
Oh, looks like we lost Bryan. Oh, there, you're back. Okay.
I forgot to put it on do not disturb when we were on the show today.
Oh.
So I was getting a call. So I apologize. That's one thing I did forget to do, is I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb, and so I had a call right there. So I apologize. But if you go back to following the protocols and making sure that you do your part, good things are going to happen. The next question I think that you had in this last cluster was, did we learn things when we get COVID cases? Absolutely, we have. And as you said, we've had some cases here in the district, but we expected to have it. I think every district should expect to have COVID cases because that's what a virus does. But it's how you react when it happens, and it's what your protocols look like. So I'll give you a quick rundown of when we have a COVID case in our district, what happens, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we have learned in this process. So let's say that at one of our schools, there's a positive COVID case. Immediately, we get our response team out to that campus. And the first thing we do is we isolate that classroom. We get all of the exposed folks. We get them separated. We make sure we isolate, we deep clean, we get everything in that classroom taken care of first of all. Then it comes to closing the air vents. Some people forget about that. When you have a virus that can spread, we have closed the vents. So in a classroom, let's say there's an exposure, we're able to close the vent so air doesn't come back in. And so we can clean that out. So we do that. And then if you are exposed, we call your parents directly via the telephone. That I think is very important. So once we call the exposures, and we make contact with them. So let's say we call your family and we leave you a voicemail that your student may have been exposed. We're going to wait till you call us back until we send out the rest of our notifications to everybody else on that campus. So the first thing is isolation, cleaning, getting the exposed folks notified. Then we email that entire campus staff, and then we email all of the parents at that particular school. That's how the protocols work. And it's so important that, back to the communication part, if you had a child at one of our schools and there's a positive COVID case, we want you to know about it, and you will know. So one of the questions that I get from parents at campuses who may not have had a COVID case is, well, how come I'm not being notified at my school when there's a case across the district? Well, quite frankly, it doesn't affect your campus. We want to notify the families of those that are affected at that particular campus first. That's first and foremost, and to get them the information that they need. Everything else comes after that. So then we update our COVID dashboard on the website at least once a week, but those numbers are always going to lag because of the notification procedures. So that's how the process will work. What did we learn? So, and this might sound odd, Inga, but we've done it a few times, the COVID positive diagnosis, and each time we've done it, we've gotten better at it. We've improved. We know exactly who needs to go to that campus to help clean, to help make phone calls, to help notify the exposed. Then we have our notification procedures down to a science, to where I will send out notifications to parents at that school. Our HR department will send out notifications to the staff at that school. And then it's all about answering questions and reassuring folks. And so one of the big parts that we learned was the air ventilation. We were talking a lot coming in to the school year about ventilation and how important that was. But doing that before the first positive case hits is so important. So that's one of the big things that we've done since school started that we didn't originally have per se in a plan. We just weren't exactly sure the best way to do it. And so now we've learned how to do that. So I think all of these things combine into the learning curve. And I think a big part of it is, and I'm going to use a sports analogy, a football analogy. Monday through Saturday in the NFL is practice, where if you do what you do during practice, you practice your new plays, you practice your defense, you practice your routes. On game day on Sunday, if you do everything that you practice during that week, you're going to be fine. And so I think for us, putting the protocols into place the way they are, and now whenever we have an active diagnosis on campus, we can put these protocols into play. There's no freaking out from our end because we know how to do it. We've done it before. There's not a panic because we've done it before. I don't know how this is going to sound, but it almost seems like we have it down because we've gotten to do it. And we haven't gotten to do it a ton, thankfully. But when we do, we're very good at improving it. And we honestly have a good plan in place. And so if I could put a bookend to it, this is a really long answer to your question, but if I could put a bookend to it, I think I would say, number one, to go back to the first part, don't put all of your eggs in the COVID basket. Don't forget about all of the normal, everyday things that you might be overlooking right now with the start of school. And the second thing is, there's no need to panic if you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, because it's going to happen. And would you rather be in a stressful situation, being confident, knowing what you're doing, making sure things are going correctly? Or would you rather be in a stressful situation, freaking out, making everybody around you nervous, and then who knows what might happen? So here at our district, that we were very confident about what we're doing because we have a plan, we have a very good team, we have understanding parents, and so far the protocols and procedures are working very well in our district.
Well, that is a great answer. You answered all the different parts of my question, and I think the summary from that is basically like what I hope is that if school leaders or parents or teachers are watching this video, which I hope many of them are, that they have a sense of reassurance that this is doable, right? That if you have good procedures, you practice them, you prepare, you communicate well, that as terrifying it is to think that we're in the middle of a pandemic, you actually can run a school and you can have skinned knees and and broken pencils and all the sort of mundane things that happen at a school.
And two other things too that I'll mention, particularly with what you want to focus on in this time. we try and focus on all of the positives that are going on in our district. COVID is obviously what we have to work with every day, and we do our protocols and we make sure that we do them to the best of our ability, but that doesn't overtake our day. There are so many great things going on in our school district. We had our first home football game last Friday, so we had half the capacity. So our stadium seats 4,200 fans. We had 2,000 fans following social distancing. Our cheerleaders, band, dance team, they all were performing and following guidelines. We had our first theater performance at Champion High School last weekend. We have a lot of great things going on inside the classroom. There's several of our schools that are doing what they call Uber book delivery, which is really cool because the libraries are closed for foot traffic. So you can be in a classroom and you can go online and order a book from the library and they deliver it right to your class. So it's Uber books. And so there's all these positive things that are going on through the first 4 weeks that we want to highlight those. The fact that we're still here, we're still standing, we're still having student success. And oh, by the way, I want to add that our attendance at this point in time is higher now than it was a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Just an FYI for the people that are listening, that are wondering, well, so are people showing up?
Of the students who chose on-campus learning, right? Not right, because there's maybe 20% that are doing distance learning, but so of the students who chose on-campus learning, the attendance is actually higher.
Yes, ma'am. Percentage-wise, yeah, because I think people see what we're doing, and we see a lot of great things. And so, again, I think it's all about the way you look at things. It's all about perspective. We know that this is a unique time for students and parents, but there's a lot of great things going on, and I wish that we could spend a lot more time, media-wise, talking about a lot of great positive things going on. But unfortunately, in this day and age, a COVID case is more important to cover to the news than honor roll or than all the positive things in the classroom going on. But, that's another story for another day. But again, I would say, don't forget about the positives. Accentuate all of those things that you normally would in school, because your kids are going to be fine. They're going to do great things. Everything's going to be okay as long as you do what we're here to do. And that's 1, be safe, and 2, educate our kids.
Yeah. Well, one of my wish list of things to ask you about was, and you've foreshadowed this a little bit by talking about like the football games, the theater, the Uber book deliveries. But just what are ways that you feel like that the relationships and community and team spirit is forming at Boerne ISD in spite of some of the changes that that we've had to have because of safety? But do you get a sense of that now the kids are back on campus, they can build that identity of like, I'm a Boerne ISD student, I'm a champion student, and building that identity and that team spirit?
Yeah, when we go to campuses and when I talk to principals and teachers and some students, there's a great identity being built. And I think a big thing has to do with the masks that people wear. A lot of our schools have masks with the school logo, or the PTO will create a mask and they'll give it out to students. And then there are the spirit shirts. So every Friday is Spirit Shirt Friday. And so we've made sure to continue that tradition to where if you're at Currington Elementary, you wear red on Fridays. If you're at Fabra Elementary, you wear green on Fridays. Tomorrow night, the Boerne Greyhounds will play another football game. You'll wear purple. And the volleyball game is tomorrow, so you'll wear purple for that. So the school spirit is still there, but there's different ways that we can enhance that in the classroom and online too for our e-learners. I think our teachers are doing a great job of making sure that the e-learners are involved. And if you follow our school social medias or the district social media, we've made sure to highlight what e-learners are doing. We posted a couple of cool e-learning pictures last week of a student at home doing a science project, and he had his laptop in front of him. He had his 2-liter empty Coke bottle, and he was doing his science experiment at home. And so normal things can happen there too. School spirit can happen there too. So we've tried to make it as normal as possible. But I think the cool part too is that each campus has their own identity everywhere you go, no matter what district you're in. And the campuses here, I think, for the most part, have kept that same identity because we have great principals and we have great teachers and we have great families. And so it might look different. You might be walking down the hallway wearing a mask on your face or a different type of spirit shirt, but you're still doing it and you're still having that sense of normalcy. And so I do see that the bonding is happening and it's very important because we have a very involved staff and parents. So it's been really, really cool to see.
I think what the sense I'm getting from the stories, from the research I found and from the stories and the pictures you shared is that there's the mission of Boerne ISD, right, which is having students be learning and happy and safe. That it's working in spite of the pandemic, and I hope that message of hope carries through, and that families who live in other communities, other parts of San Antonio, can look at what's happening in Boerne and have hope that, right, as long as the number of COVID cases continues to drop, and as it becomes safe in other parts of the region to reopen schools, that that we can bring something like a more normal school experience back to life. And yeah, that I want to share this positive message that that like good things are happening in Boerne ISD. Like students are learning, they're participating in extracurriculars, they're building school spirit, they're interacting with their teachers, and that there's hope that this could be coming to other parts of the region in the near future.
I agree. And I think the cool part for us in Boerne ISD is, yeah, we were the first ones in our area to do it. And that's very important because we had a bullseye. We still do have a bullseye on our backs, and that's okay because we're very confident with what we're doing. But I think the cool part now is seeing other districts that are opening up. Comal ISD, New Braunfels ISD opened up in person last week. Comfort right down the road from us. Bandera. My wife teaches in Judson ISD, so she's going to have in person next week. Alamo Heights, all the places in your area too. And so it's neat to see that normalcy is coming for everybody. Normalcy is around the corner. And I think still we can be vigilant. I think there's a misconception that because there's COVID around, you can't do normal things. And I think that's a misconception, because if you look at what we're doing, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the things that we're doing in Boerne, a lot of other school districts are doing because we're all following the same guidelines from the CDC and from the TEA. We're not making this up as we go along. No districts are. The number one factor for all of us is the safety of our students and making sure that they get the best possible learning experience. And at the end of the day, if we can do those two things, then we're doing our community service the way that we should. And other districts I know are doing the same thing, because we've spoken to the other districts that are around us who are opening up and who are telling us their experiences. And when your students go back to school, I know you'll have those stories too. But I think it's very important that we try and restore some normalcy, but also be very vigilant of what we're all here to do. And at the end of the day, we serve the community. We are servants of our parents and our students, and that's our number one job. And if we can do that, then we're doing our jobs.
Yeah, I think that like it's tempting, during the pandemic to just be fearful and just want to just hide and just shut everything down. But that's not the right thing to do, because that doesn't serve what the community needs, right? There are a lot of students who will do much better face to face with a teacher, right? With a teacher influencing their learning. And so then it's a matter of, like you said, practicing, having good procedures, learning, improving, communicating with peers, but like being clear-eyed and brave about saying, okay, we're going to open, we're going to have good procedures, we're going to follow through, we're going to keep learning from it. And then execute and do it. And it's in Boerne ISD, it's working.
Something too to that point is it's all about adapting as well. And when you look at our e-learning situation here in Boerne, it's vastly different than it was in the springtime. And we've learned and tweaked that program a lot too. And since we've been open for these 4 weeks of school, we've made some adjustments with e-learning too, because at the end of the day, the students that chose e-learning, their families did so for a reason, and it's the best way for them to learn. So we want to make sure that our e-learners get the best possible learning experience as well, which is why we are constantly reaching out to e-learning teachers and families to see, well, how can we tweak that? How can we make that better? Because at the end of the day, they chose that for a reason. They didn't want to come back to school in person for various reasons. Who knows what it might be? So we want to make sure that they get that great experience also. And so another part of adjusting is adjusting to e-learning. And it's interesting because different districts are doing a lot of different things for e-learning. It's not a one size fits all. And so when you look at what's happening here or Comfort or Comal, it might not look the same, but we're all trying to adapt as we go along, because at the end of the day, it's all new for us too, with e-learning and masks and all these sort of things. So it's not just, are we adapting and adjusting to in-person, it's adjusting to e-learning as well, because that is a good chunk of our parents and our students too. The cool part about e-learning is that we can pop in and out of those classes really easily to see our superintendent, Dr. Price, who is the superintendent of the year in Region 20, which covers the San Antonio area. For the Boerne Insider, that's our online TV show that you mentioned earlier. He went to a couple of classrooms earlier this week to tape an episode of the Boerne Insider, and he wanted to make sure he did one in-person class and one e-learning class so he could see what it was like. And when that episode of the Boerne Insider airs in a couple of weeks, it'll be interesting for our families to see what he got to see on the classroom that day on the computer. And so it's important for us to be able to see those things so we can make those types of adjustments if need be also.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think sometimes the e-learning families feel like, maybe, yeah, like if all the attention is going to on campus, which that is challenging, that's important. But the e-learning families want to know that they're getting a good quality education as well. And it's hard because it's so new for, what so many districts are doing. But knowing that, and there's always a risk of, that there will be some kind of, melt or loss, or that like families will somehow disconnect from the district, right? And so being proactive about communication, make sure that those families do stay engaged. Children are still attending school, even though it's electronic. There was one thing in the materials about e-learning that caught my eye, and that was there were actually instructions on how your kids could do e-learning using their Xbox or PlayStation. And I was like, okay, I got to try this. I didn't know you could access Google Classroom on a PlayStation.
I didn't show my son that document because he would have wanted to stay home and do school on Xbox. But
I know, right?
But
like,
you're right.
A moral hazard, yeah.
No, you're right. There's so many ways that you can do it. And it's funny is I saw one of our e-learning parents. I'm friends with them on their Facebook page, and they had their kids. They have 3 of them, and they were having part of their e-learning class the other day around the pool. So they had a photo of the 3 kids with their 3 laptops next to the pool, and they were all learning there in the morning because it was a beautiful morning. It was nice and cool, and they were all getting their e-learning done by the pool. So, you can do it from wherever you want to. And actually, there are some people that I know who are traveling a little bit with e-learners, so they're doing their e-learning somewhere else in a different state, but they're getting their e-learning done. So you can do it wherever you're from. But an interesting thing too that I wanted to bring up is that a lot of our e-learning families, they are enjoying the process of e-learning, and they're keeping an eye on what's going on in school, and they're waiting it out. And they say, I think we're going to step back in to in-person when the 9 weeks is up, because that's the frame that we gave our families. You can
Right.
choose one or the
Right.
other, but you have to stay for 9 weeks. And so we're hearing a lot from families that say, we like e-learning, we do, but we think we're going to come back to in-person in 9 weeks. But we're also hearing some too from e-learners that, you know what, I'm hearing good things about in person, but we're going to stay a little bit longer for maybe the next grading period, just because we're really enjoying the process. Has it been perfect for e-learning and for in-person? No, I don't think anything is perfect, but we really have learned a lot. And I think we really are trying to improve the process for both. And we think that, the improvements are marketable when you look at what we've heard from staff and from parents.
Yeah, and so as part of we've done research at SA Turn Moms about virtual schools, and that there may be in the future there may be more virtual school options for families than there had been in the past. So I don't know, not exactly sure what TEA is up to, but but yeah, I think families once they like some families are trying homeschooling or they're trying virtual schooling or road schooling, right? As the family
Yeah,
who's traveling, that's what we call it, road schooling.
road schooling.
So they may be they may be trying these other models and decide, okay, this is what we want, right? And and there may be things about there may be like tools or strategies that people are adopting because of the pandemic that they'll use for the long term. So my husband, who works in technology, he describes it as, he said, well, look, these are changes that were already happening slowly, and then but we just had this landslide of innovation, and somewhat uncomfortable, but but it brought a lot of people into the modern era as far as using communication tools that they hadn't used before.
You're right. And that's the thing too. When you look at e-learning, there's tons of new technology. And we have some teachers that have never used that technology before. And so what we did before school started was to make sure that we gave them ample training on it. Because and it does change too. And one of the cool things is that we're a part of Operation Connectivity with the TEA. So our board approved well over $2 million worth of devices that we bought for families. And every teacher this year at our district was able to get a laptop or a Chromebook so they can use in the classroom, whether they were e-learners or not. So it's that new technology that we're all going for. And one of the things too, if I can go back to what did we learn? In e-learning, one of the main things that we've learned was that we bought some new microphones for e-learning teachers to plug into their device. And that's just not that we didn't think about it, but we bought something that's more compatible for the classroom. And so those are some things that as you go through and as you do it and as you learn, you're able to adjust. And so I said earlier about adapting, and that's something important too, is okay, now we have better microphones that are more conducive for e-learners. So it's things like that that I think the districts around us, as they get started, are going to see. So again, we're fortunate that we're already in week 4 and that we've learned a lot of this stuff. And a lot of the folks that watch your show, they're going to see a lot of the stuff that we've learned that we might not have thought of, or that we've gotten a suggestion from teacher, parent, or whatever that can make the experience better.
Yeah, that Bernie was brave and went out there on the front lines, and but it's gone well, and then it's very generous of you to take the time to explain what you're learning and share it, and so then parents can listen to that and take heart that if they are choosing on-campus learning for their kids, that there's a good chance that they'll have a positive experience with it as well, just as most Boerne ISD families have had a positive experience. And school leaders who are nervous about this, I guess, your sports analogy is good. It's basically like, 6 days of the week, do your practice, do your drills, and then when it's game day, you'll be ready. Just follow your procedure, and you'll be able to keep your faculty and your students safe. So, well, this has been a great conversation, and I'm just wondering if you have any closing thoughts or any good news from Boerne ISD, or any just anything you want to close out with.
Well, first, I want to thank you again for having me on the show. And if I can, if what I've said today can help alleviate some nervousness to not only administrations, but to parents, I think honestly, when you look at what we have done and the feedback that we've received and what we've adjusted, along with other districts around us, it's all about making sure that we're here for the children and for their parents. And so, again, it might sound a little bit cheesy, but that's what we do for. And so I appreciate you letting me come and talk about this, and also to know that there's a lot of positive things that are going on. And what you see on TV stations in San Antonio is not even close to the entire story. There's lots of positivity, lots of great things happening, and just make sure we do our part, and we are in it for the children and for the parents. And we're very, very happy that we're able to do this, and we've learned a lot. And I'm very happy to be able to get to talk to you, and hopefully what I've said has helped shed some light for folks that you might know that are going to be starting school coming up next week. I know my wife's excited. Like I said, my wife's at Judson, and she's been e-learning. They started the 24th, I believe, of August, and so she's excited to get physical students in the classroom next week too. It's fun. That's what we're here for. The student teacher experience is why we do what we do, and we could not be happier to be able to get to do this in Boerne. We're very fortunate. And again, I thank you for letting me come on and talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, what I take away from this is that Boerne ISD is serving its community. The community wanted students on campus overwhelmingly, and you're doing that, and you're keeping them safe, and you're reassuring them, and following good procedures, and you're making sure that the families that chose e-learning, that they're getting the best possible education that they can as well. So I'm very proud to share a positive story, and hope that families across the region, can take hope from this, that we can find these aspects of normalcy, of joy and school spirit, and yeah, like kids wearing their t-shirts and doing their science experiments, and just learning and having a good time. All right, well, thank you so much, Bryan, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you,
Take care.
everybody. Have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend.